Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chrissy, and I would like to welcome you to the Doylestown Bookshop's virtual event series. I am very happy to welcome Mary Fran Bontempo and Kristin Smedley as they discuss Brilliantly Resilient, Reset, Rise, and Reveal Your Brilliance. The authors will be taking questions from you, the viewers, after their discussion. If you would like to submit a question, please click on Ask a Question at the bottom of your screen and enter your question there. If you're watching from a phone or tablet, click the icon with the question mark to submit your questions. If you would like to purchase this book from the Doylestown Bookshop, click the button on your screen that says Buy the Book. We have curbside pickup available at both of our locations, or we can ship the book to you. I have had a few questions during past events from viewers who are accustomed to Zoom events. So to avoid any confusion, only our guest and myself will be able to participate through video and audio. You may interact with us through the chat box on your screen and, of course, the Q&A. Now a little bit about our guests. Kristin Smedley and Mary Fran Bontempo know their brilliance, but they did not always. In fact, Kristin and Mary Fran knows what it feels like to be lost, afraid, unproductive, unsuccessful, and unhappy. That's a lot of yuck, but without it, there would have been no need for resilience, which is the key to uncovering your brilliance. As a young mother, Kristin found herself raising two blind sons with no idea of how to help them live vital, successful lives. Mary Fran navigated numerous personal and professional losses, culminating with her son's devastating heroin addiction. Utterly unprepared to manage either crisis, Kristin and Mary Fran knew only that they would not allow themselves or their children to be defined by the challenges, and they were determined to not only survive but thrive. Together, they found it brilliantly resilient and have committed themselves to helping the world become just that. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi,
Hey.
We're so excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. I'm looking forward to your discussion and your presentation. I'm going to go off screen and let you go to it.
All right. So now I am Mary Fran. This is my buddy Kristin. And
Hey.
I'm going to make the attempt to get the technology to work. Woo! I'm sure it'll be great. We're going to jump over to a slide presentation. We'll kind of talk through it. And as Chrissy said, we would love to take your questions afterwards. So here we go. Okay, there we go. And we're going to do this. Oh my goodness, it worked. Unbelievable.
Look at you. Okay. We've raised you so well.
I know, right? Can you believe it? It's amazing. Okay, so here we go. Brilliantly Resilient. Reset, Rise, and Reveal Your Brilliance with us, Kristin Smedley, Mary Fran Bontempo. I guess the best place to start with all of this is to say that although we did not plan it this way, this global smackdown that we all have been in was the perfect time for this book to come out. We, Kristin and I, have been through our individual challenges, what we call our sucker punches and train wrecks. And the word resilience has been the word of the year. So we came together, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we wrote this book, and it has been a game changer, I think, not only for other people, but also for us, because Brilliantly Resilient is a process. I wish I could say to you all that read this book and you'll be brilliantly resilient and life will be great and it'll all be wonderful. But it don't work that way.
I was hoping that writing it, I would just be brilliantly resilient and be done.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
It doesn't happen that way. Doesn't happen that way. But if you do read the book and you work this process and you kind of absorb it, which is what we ended up doing unconsciously and before we even knew each other, you will have the tools to meet challenges and crises and be brilliantly resilient. So here's the thing about resilience. It is about getting through pain and disappointment without letting them crush your spirit. Ugh, how many of us have been through this stuff and felt crushed, especially this last year? So I'm going to let Kristin talk to you about what she calls her sucker punch, and I'll tell you about my train wreck, and then we'll get into the whole brilliantly resilient concept.
Yeah, so if you can see the picture there with the guy throwing the punch, imagine, I literally envision myself still standing there with that glove hitting me right in the heart. So I don't know about you all, but I was one of those people that had, I planned out everything. I still like to plan out everything. And I had planned my entire life. I planned to be a teacher, and that happened. I planned to have the big wedding, the great house, the da-da-da-da-da. Everything I had planned always came to fruition. Now, I will say, too, that I worked myself silly to make sure that all that happened, but everything came to fruition. And I finally at 28 years old had my biggest dream come true. I was going to be a mom. And for those of you that are moms out there that have carried a baby for 9 months, or that are close to somebody that you got to experience that with them, then you know that as your belly is growing, your hopes and dreams for them grow, right? I mean, like you start off with, I hope I just have a healthy baby. And by month 8.5, it's like quarterback, pitcher, the star in the nutcracker. Like, you have all these mega dreams for them, right? And that was me. And then my Michael was born in the year 2000. It was January. It was snowing. It was like this amazing weekend. And I finally got to be a mom. And my life was literally picture perfect. And then at 4 months old, a doctor said to me, your son is blind. And I got to tell you guys, I can hear you gasping, and I can hear your hearts taking that sucker punch like I did. Nobody could plan for something like that. No one could have been able to prevent my fall to the floor. I literally fell to the floor under the weight of that punch. It was nothing that I had ever intended. I'll leave it there.
So, Kristin and I have shared our stories a million times. And every time she says, the doctor said, your son is blind, I feel that punch again. So I can only imagine what that was like in that moment. And I am the steaming train coming towards you that I heard coming, but just thought, no, it can't be that. And I put it off through distraction and denial, the two closest companions of crisis. And then on Mother's Day, my journey brought me to a place where I learned that my son was a heroin addict. I had been celebrating at my mom's in another room of the house, walked out of that room and came back after hearing a commotion to find my son shaking uncontrollably. And we called the paramedics, and they kept saying to him, what did you take? What did you take? And let me be clear. I knew my son was struggling with some things, but I had no idea what the depth of his struggle was. So when they finally got him out of the house, he admitted that he had taken a painkiller that day that he had stolen because he wasn't able to get heroin that day. So when we got him to the hospital, the doctor told us that, yes, he was indeed a heroin addict, but because of the medication that he had ingested, if they could not reverse the effects of that medication, he would need a liver transplant if he survived. In that moment, everything that you thought you were, thought you knew, thought you understood about how the world works, everything evaporates. It evaporates. I was Marsha Brady growing up. I worked at the church. I was a church singer. I was the youth minister. I taught at my kids' grade school. And I thought I did everything right. But the thing about crisis and challenges, it doesn't matter whether you did everything right. We're all in line for something. So that was our stories. But both Kristin and I, after we met through the introduction of a mutual friend, realized in telling each other our stories that we had come through these things with a process that we shared. And eventually we realized that we could teach it to other people. And this was Kristin's big line about this process, that it's a decision. And I'm going to let her share that part.
I mean, you really have to ask yourself, and believe me, it wasn't just blindness that I had to ask myself this question. I had to sit there and face myself in divorce after 20 years, in looking at bankruptcy paperwork, selling a house to be able to afford college, making big decisions like that when you didn't plan them. But I really had to sit and say to myself, you're going to come through this. I mean, you're still going to be alive. It might not feel that great, but do you want to come through it broken or brilliant? Do you want to be the victim or the victor? And it's ingrained in me to share my brilliance and not live in broken, because I've been in broken for at times when the blindness diagnosis hit, it was 3.5 years of broken, and it's not a spot I want to ever go back to. So we'll move on to brilliant.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, we don't certainly mean to minimize any crisis, because as you can imagine, the crises that we had experienced were massive, just massive. So we don't mean that you minimize and go, oh, everything's going to be fine. It's not about that. But what it is about is making a decision that crisis is not going to define the rest of your life. You are not going to live forever in that place of pain. And that's another one of our lines that we give everybody. Make the decision. Are you just visiting this place of crisis, or are you going to live there? You get to decide and then behave and act based on that decision. So we learned that we had resilience within us. And I don't know, Kristin, I would ask you this question, and I think I know the answer, but I think because these situations that we were involved in involved our children, we realized right away that we had to dig deep to help our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that it's a situation where we have it. You have resilience in you. The question is, are you going to be able to uncover it? Think about this. When you were a child, you walked by crawling and getting up and falling and getting up and falling and getting up. That's resilience. But we don't name it when we're children. It's just something that's in us. And as we get older, because we have to put names and labels on everything, we kind of forget that we have that, because it's an inherent skill, but it is there. And it's a skill that every single one of you has. It's just a matter of accessing it again. And again, I think for us, for our kids, like, we were in. We were all in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's one of the things that we talk about with the reset. And Kristin has an amazing story about perception. Each one of these pieces that we talk about, the reset, the rise, and the reveal of your brilliance, has a couple of pieces in it. We can't talk about all of them tonight, but this one is really, it'll really hit home with you. And I want Kristin to share her story.
Yeah, and you know what, as you all are hearing this, I want you to think about what either your latest sucker punch is, or something that you just can't see it differently other than it sucks. Just believe me, I can look at something from every angle.
Sucks.
Yeah, and only see Suckville. But I promise you, and I've done this with multiple different things, but I'm just going to give you this one example. So if you see this picture that is in front of you on the screen it looks like a little boat, and the sun is perhaps rising, and I use this in presentations all the time with a little family on the boat. And somebody said to me one time, wow, Kristin, that's a beautiful vacation photo. I'm like, I wish. This was my life the day that the doctor said your son is blind. He also said to me one other wonderfully powerful thing. He said, good luck. That's all that he said to me with this little baby that was blind, and I had no idea what to do with blindness or how to do blindness, right? And I felt like it was this picture. He had sent me and my little family out on the water. The sun is going down. We have nowhere to go, no resources, and we're going to be stuck out there, right? And unfortunately, that's the beginning of a lot of our journeys. When the sucker punch hits, that's how we feel. We're headed for darkness and don't know where to go. Here's the problem. With no one to turn to, no role models, no tribe, no resources, no education in this, I saw blindness as a complete and utter nightmare. The blindness of my son. I mean, imagine your child has the number one thing that everybody in the world is scared of, and your child has it. However, I neglected to realize something, and thank God that my son, after 3.5 years, and Michael was 3.5 years old, I was literally for 3.5 years, every single night, praying blindness away. And every single morning, pissed off that it was still there. That was it was like cry, sigh, repeat. cry, sigh, repeat. That was my life. And then one morning, Michael bounced into my room and he said to me, as I was in the middle of the ugliest cry of all ugly cries that no amount of stick-on eyelashes could ever have survived, he said to me, "Mommy, isn't this the best day ever?" And I was like, you have no idea how this is the worst, and it's only the beginning of a lifetime of the worst day ever. I didn't say that out loud. And I said to him, "Michael, why is this the best day ever?" And he goes, "Mommy, the sun is up and I have all my toys and I'm just so happy." And then he spun around and went back to his perfect day. And I realized it was like a lightning. If it was Hollywood, they would have had lightning bolts and the soundtrack would have kicked in, right? Michael wasn't bothered by blindness. He saw it, and he still, 21 years later, sees it as a mere inconvenience at times. He figures everything out around it. I was the one that saw it as a nightmare, as devastating, as sad. I had dreamt my whole life to be a mom and to be the best mom ever. And in that moment, I realized the only person standing in Michael's way of living out all of his hopes and dreams was his mom, because I was seeing his situation as crappy and horrible, and he didn't see it that way at all. So I say that to say, I learned from a 3.5-year-old to look at it differently. Blindness was a mere inconvenience, and it still is. Does it piss us off sometimes? Absolutely. Somebody doesn't want to hire my son because he's blind? Pisses me off. Is that the biggest deal in the world? Hell no, because he's done some amazing things. When I got divorced, I was pissed I wasn't going to have a 50th wedding anniversary. That's so stupid, because that was hallelujah that marriage ended. I can tell you that one. But I had to stop looking at it that way. So I guarantee you, if you can look at the train wreck, the sucker punch, why you're feeling broken, if you can look at the situation in a different way with a different lens. Sometimes it takes someone else, like my Michael, coming in and giving me the different lens. I guarantee you it'll start you on your reset.
Yeah, one of the things that Kristin and I say is that when you let go of what you think things should be, then you make room for what they could be. Now, in Kristin's case, that worked out to be a beautiful door opening. In my case, I hadn't looked at my son as a potential drug addict, even though I knew he was struggling and having problems, because that didn't fit my image of what we were supposed to be. You know, we were the church goers. We were with our kids the whole time. They had a great life. We were with them constantly. We did not fit what I thought the family of an addict looked like. The problem with my perception there, I put off helping him because I couldn't accept it. So when you let go of what you think things should be to make room for what they could be, you will either face the truth and be able to actually then act on the situation, or you will face another kind of truth, as Kristin said, and realize that the situation has some blessings in it and some things that you can look at differently to move it along. So that is one of the things that you can use to reset with resilience in crisis. So now the next phase of this is the rise. And this is where we talk about that idea of just visiting or going to live there. You get to make that decision. You are just visiting this place of crisis. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to either pray it away or work it away or whatever. It may be with you forever. However, the attitude, as Kristin said, of victim instead of victor does not have to be with you forever. So the rise has some parts in it too. And the biggest, most important one is action. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out what you can do in a situation. And we're talking one action step here. And all these things have other little moving parts and pieces that go with them. That, you know, it's your resources, it's your talents, it's your skill set, it's your tribe. But using all of that, what is one action step that you can take We tend to think in crisis that it's a big, huge crisis, that it's going to demand a big, huge solution. It never works like that. You might get it in one day, but it isn't going away in one day. It takes smaller steps and pieces that are built one on top of the other to get you to the other side. But you must take action.
You know what's funny, Mary Fran, that I realized, especially I am in like, I swear to God just wants me to constantly be in the Super Bowl of sucker punches. I'm like, could you maybe ease up? And everybody keeps saying, like, you're going to keep facing the same situation until you learn what you're supposed to learn on this planet. I'm like, I'm a flipping Wikipedia page, for God's sake. But I realize, like, right now I'm in the middle of selling a home and buying a home. And I tend to get so, like, back in the pit because it seems, like Mary Fran said, so overwhelming. But here's what I know for certain about myself. When I do one thing, like, okay, go into the bank account and see about the percentage of the mortgage, of all that stuff that I hate to do, I tackle one thing and I'll put it on my calendar. Today, you got to tackle what the mortgage might be. Tomorrow, you have to line up an inspector, but only one. 9 times out of 10, I'll do maybe 9 things. But when I do the one action step, I feel it's like 25 pounds comes off of you. And then you have the confidence to take the next one. And before you know it, you look back after a few days and you're like, look at me buying houses.
You have to give yourself the grace to break this thing down into smaller pieces. You are not going to solve this problem all at once. And very often, when you do take that action step, it's going to cause a reaction or some kind of a change, hopefully, in the situation that you're dealing with. So you have to allow the thing to evolve and change so that you can see what you have to do next. So that's such an important piece in the rise, is taking that action step. And again, we're kind of oversimplifying here. There's a lot more stuff in this book, but take that one action step and then see where it goes. And don't burden yourself with trying to solve the whole crisis, because you ain't going to do it. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. Okay, but now the most important piece that we really want to leave people with, and this was one of the things when we started Brilliantly Resilient that we really wanted to focus on, because everybody was talking about resilience. But here's what we didn't want to see happen. We didn't want people to pick themselves up and go, yay, I'm resilient, and then stand in place and wait for the next sucker punch to knock them down. We wanted them to find their brilliance, which I guarantee you is buried within every crisis that you come up against. The way you attack that, the skill set, the things that you use, your brilliance is in there. What we wanted people to do was find that brilliance and then utilize it in other areas of your lives to move and get the heck out of the way so you wouldn't be standing there like a human punching bag.
Yeah, and think about this. Like when we say go from broken, do you want to come out broken or brilliant? If you can consider and those of you that are in the middle of something really hard right now, I feel you. I totally feel you, because I've been there, and I've been there recently too. But if you can consider the fact that if you really tap into, and the book goes into it, and we have some stuff online that we can tell you about later, of really getting in touch with uncovering your brilliance. If you go into something that's horrible and hard with the knowledge that, ooh, if I focus, I'm going to come out of this uncovering a gift, a talent that's been sitting there I haven't used. And oh my gosh, where am I going to take that? I swear to you, I put that into practice over this whole past 2020 with COVID, because so many horrible things happened. And every day I was resetting and rising and looking. It took me about 10 months to finally start going, oh, maybe I should look for the brilliance. Where's the brilliance? And it made it so much easier, because then it's almost like we joke that we're going to have you celebrating your sucker punches. Clearly, that's not going to happen, or we're like lunatics, right? But we are, when you go about it with that kind of attitude, with that kind of mindset, that there's brilliance here that's going to come out of this if I just focus and follow this system, which is a super simple system because it's us and we don't do anything hard. No. If you go into it like that, I guarantee you it makes it a little bit lighter, a little bit easier, and makes it easier to take those action steps to get the hell out of it and be able to look back and say, oh, now here's some more brilliance.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favorite ways to illustrate this point. So when I see that picture there, that if you can't see it on the screen, it's an island in the middle of an ocean, like just trees and an island. And it reminds me of the movie Castaway. So anybody who watched that movie remembers that Tom Hanks is stranded on this island and is forced to survive for, I don't know for how long, until he gets rescued. So not only does he make a shelter, hunt for his own food, he actually behaves like a dentist and takes a tooth out of his mouth. He didn't have any of those skills in particular. He never learned how to survive on a desert island. But what he did have was a measure of ingenuity, the ability to look at something and go, all right, well, how can I use this differently? How can I take this thing and make it into something else? How can I just do what I need to do, even though it might be hard and I don't know how to do it perfectly? How can I do that to survive? Because a skill is a skill is a skill. And you can take the skill, and I'm going to go back, sorry. You can take that skill and you can transfer it to other parts of your life. If you can land on a desert island, obviously none of us are doing that, but think about those times in your life when you were plopped in the middle of a situation and now you're on the other side of it. Think about what you did back then. What skills and talents did you use to get through? Are you a good problem solver? Are you a good team captain? Are you a good negotiator? Are you a good logician? I don't know what the word is, but are you logical?
I think you just invented 2 words.
I did. Whatever. It works, right? Are you logical? Are you imaginative? What are those skills that are going to get you to the other side?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to go to a slide of our skills.
Yeah,
but,
who knew?
I mean,
who knew about
2
any
teachers,
of this stuff?
elementary school, she was high school, and now look at this list of the stuff that we've done, and it's like we seriously are just getting started. But both of us doing TEDx talks. This isn't even our first book for either of us. It's the first one we've done together. I launched a nonprofit. Mary Fran creates content like some people eat Oreo cookies. Like,
and I eat a lot.
she puts content out there like, oh my God. But I mean, then the programs that we've done, we have the video show. It became a podcast. We are world dominators, ladies and gentlemen. Wait, that's the funniest thing we have to throw in here real quick. And I know that we're going to get close to our time here because we want to get to conversation with you all. But when we started a year ago before the pandemic hit, I have a folder on my computer that says Brilliantly Resilient World Tour. I mean, we're international speakers. We were going to go on all the stages all over and had it all planned, right? I was racking up miles. I've got everything. I mean, you buy a pretzel at Wawa in my family, and I'm getting airline miles for the world tour, right? And then the stupid world shuts down, and we were like, son of a nutcracker. However, within 6 months, our podcast, show, posts, website have gone all around. We've had guests from Australia. We have people, I think it's like Guam, people are listening in from.
Wait,
what?
We were on the charts in Sweden for the podcast. Like the top 100.
We were topping the charts in Sweden. World domination.
But it just goes to show you this was part of none of our plans. None. We didn't expect to do any of this. But when we had situations that we thought we couldn't control, we controlled what we could. We decided that we were going to be brilliant and not broken. We took an action step. We let the situation evolve. And then we used our transferable skills to figure out, all right, where can we take this? And it's taken us to these different places because we stopped looking at things the way they should be. And we allowed ourselves to look at them the way that they could be. So you too have everything inside of you to be brilliantly resilient. The book will give you some steps. There are tons of resources on our website that gives you the steps to do that. And we always like to end with our yay, our kids, here they are, just so you can see that the genesis of all this with our children, how this came out.
Yeah, I was saying in the beginning that I had the big, big plans. It's like that country song. I got big, big plans for my kids, and then I had to let them all go. And thank God I did, because I never could have dreamt the life that they've been leading ever since. And that picture on the left there, one of my things was I just envisioned Michael as the valedictorian. And of course I had to let that go. And didn't that kid become the valedictorian at Council Rock South? 600 kids in that class. And he was voted the speaker. And he went to Nashville for a year for school, released an album. I flew down to Nashville for his album release party with his rock band. It was amazing. Then he said he was bored in Nashville and he wanted to go to Penn State. I think I've gone too far in that you can achieve anything, right? I'm like, stop achieving.
You have to tell them the one line that he gave everybody, because we talk about tribe and building your tribe and surrounding yourself with people. And Michael had a line during his commencement address that is one of the most moving things I've ever heard. You have to tell them that.
Yeah, he gave a whole speech about building a team and being out there, knowing what your skills and talents are, but also the things that you can't do. And you should have people on your team that can help you do the things you can't. It's just a life lesson he's always lived with his blindness. So anyway, at the end of it, though, he had all these people like on the edge of their seat. And at the end, he said, but life isn't a one-way street. And you need to be out there with your head up, looking around and see who needs you on their team to elevate them. Yeah. And the whole place stood up and was cheering. I was screaming, sobbing. It was so ugly and amazing.
It holds the key to one of the things that we talk about. If you aren't sure where your brilliance is, start with service. You will find your brilliance when you marry your heart to it. And here is my son, David, who, sweet Lord, the pictures on the left, well, they speak their own story, but beautifully enough, so do the pictures on the right. David is recovered now. He still works at his recovery all the time. Anyone who's been through addiction will tell you that they work at their recovery every day. And he is married with my three of my 7 beautiful grandbabies right there on the right-hand side. So thank you so much for paying attention to this lesson that we think has been so powerful for us. And you can find us at brilliantlyresilient.net. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. We have a Facebook community. Please join us there. It is a free community with tons and tons of information and a really great supportive tribe. So I think we're going to bring Chrissy back in here and open this up to some questions.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. So we haven't had any questions come in yet. I wanted to remind everyone, if you would like to ask a question, please click the button on your screen that says ask a question, and you can enter it there. Feel free to also enter them into the chat box. I have a few questions, if you don't mind, while we're waiting. I'd like to know, when did you both decide to put all this into a book?
Well, one day I hadn't written anything for a while, and I thought, well, let's go. We'll just write a book.
But the world wouldn't open, and we didn't know what else to do with ourselves. So we were like, well, I still haven't combed the back of my hair, and it's been 9.5 months because I'm sitting on Zoom every day. And then I guess it was like, maybe 4 or 5 months in, it just was like everything was so good that we were learning from these people from the show.
Yeah, and we did, this is a very short read, and it's that way for a very purposeful reason. When people are in crisis and in challenge, they don't have time to read a 400-page book. I don't have time to read that. I just want the basics that are going to help me get through. And we have been so blessed on this show and the podcast that we did to have had so many incredible people come on. All these people who are wildly successful, every single one of them has had a crisis or a challenge that they shared with us. And I am constantly writing down what we call their brilliance bombs. And you'll find some of their advice in here too. And it's got little worksheet pages in the back and all. It's just a really nice resource to keep. And we kind of wanted to just condense everything and say to everybody, look, if you're going through a challenge, we can help you get started and get through this.
Did you find it challenging to write during the pandemic, or did you find that since things slowed down, you had a little more time to develop all this information and put it into the book?
Well,
Or both?
this is my fifth published book, and I always find it a challenge to write. I hate it and I love it at the same time. So I think with writing, you kind of have to approach it as what's the big message that I want to get out here? And then you break it down. And for me, I think and for Kristin and I both, because it's the way we write conversationally. So when we think about how we speak to each other and how we speak to our guests, and we write that way, obviously the editors have a field day with that. But when we write that way, it does allow us to get our ideas out, I think, in an easy way.
I'll tell you what, though, when I did my book, yes, Mary Fran has 5 and Kristin doesn't. She also has 2 TED Talks and Kristin only has 1. Let's just get that out of the way. Anyway, when I did mine, I wrote it right now. I wrote mine. My Thriving Blind was to the mom sitting on the couch crying. And that is a lot of what we had in mind with Brilliantly Resilient. Like, somebody in crisis cannot handle the big, crazy words, and let's keep it simple. But when I did mine, I had 2 editors. One was my 6th grade English teacher, who was like, I'm so blessed I got to be a part of this. This is amazing. And then she goes, Kristin, you still write like you talk. We got some work to do. And the other woman was like, Kristin, if we want this to be on the New York Times bestseller list, we got to get the Philly out of it and fix it. And I was like, nope. People are going to be like, who was your ghostwriter?
Oh my gosh.
I think it was a mission to serve at the very beginning of this, because we just both came from this feeling of, wow, we're still standing after all this crap that we had to deal with.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to be that. Kristin says it so well. She says we wanted to be the resource that we didn't have.
Yeah.
So it was really important to us to get this stuff out there to people.
Oh, plus so many people have said to us, how are you still smiling and laughing? And the root of everything you guys do is joy. I'm like, well, it's kind of all relative, because when you finally come out of the suck, it's like, wow, But it was also, it's such a testament to the fact of how could we sit on all of this and not share it with people that, especially now, as every one of us is struggling with something because of everything that happened. But we're also, so many of us now, and I hope you all are doing it too, are celebrating some of the stuff that has come out of this muck. Even at first I was putting pictures on Facebook. All of my kids are home with the dogs and we're walking together. And then 3 months later, it was like, all of us are home with the dogs.
Everything has a B-side,
I'd call Mary Fran and like, tell me this goddamn Brilliantly Resilient process again, because I'm going to kill somebody. She's like, what can you control? What's your action step? And it worked.
I have a friend who says, and God bless her, I always say she's my hero because of her issues that she's gone through. She said, you have a choice. You can either do things happy or you can do them sad. And when you do things happy, the energy that you can bring to that and the signals that it sends to your brain about how to look forward instead of mired in muck automatically start you to move in that direction. So it's a really important mindset to have.
Yeah.
And I was also wondering, did you design your book cover, or did you have it designed? Did you have the design in mind if you did give it to someone else to work on?
The book cover it's the funniest story, because this picture of us that we use virtually everywhere was taken by accident.
Really? Are you kidding?
It was accident.
Oh my gosh.
Complete accident. We were with a friend of ours who is in Doylestown. She's an amazing photographer, Robin Graham. And before this show and podcast, we wrote a show called Four Chicks Chatting. And it was Robin and another friend of ours, Kathy Marcino, and Kristin and I and we did Fortune Chatty. So we were at Robin's studio one day to take pictures and goofing around. And Kristin and I were sitting next to each other on a bench, and Kathy was on the other side, and Robin was there somewhere. And Robin just took this picture, and that was it. That was the picture.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. If you look at our website, there's several from that day. I mean, the one with like Mary Fran ended up with a crown on and we're like taking candy out of her. It's just the goofiest stuff. We're very serious people. We're professional.
Right.
It was super fun. But then it was actually a guy that I grew up with in grade school that now does book covers. My mom, who is like a Facebook addict, was like, Kristin, do you know that Eric Labaz does Facebook covers now? I'm like, how do you know
Eric.
that? Stop it.
Oh, do you?
I do. He
did our cover.
Oh my gosh. He won the our Independent Bookstore Day poster contest last year. Oh my goodness.
Stop. He did Thriving Blind and Brilliantly Resilient. And he does them in a couple of days. And then we'll go, oh, can you do this? And he changes it all. And you know what he did for us, Chrissy? He gave us the book and then the Kindle one, we have the audiobook one ready to go, the logo, everything. He put it all together for us, and super fast and super easy. He's the coolest guy.
He is the coolest guy. He also, we went back to him after that, and we wanted to have new mugs made for the bookshop. So we said, could we pay you to use this art again? Because we really loved it. And he modified all the images. He was fantastic. Oh,
I know.
Small world.
I know. We're trying to get him on the show, but he's like, what? We're like, just come on live.
No
we forget that a lot of people don't like to do that.
This captured us so well, and he just took it, and he was like, oh, I'm going to play around with something. And we saw it. We were like, oh my God, because it was perfect.
Oh, wow.
And then we got the trademark. We sent it to him and we said, can you added the trademark to it?
Oh, wow.
He's amazing. He's so great. Yeah, we went all through C&E from in Ben Salem together.
How about that? Oh,
yeah.
Man. I grew up down in Pendle. That's a whole conversation for another time. So we're both from Lower Bucks. I thought I heard something in your voice. We do have a question here from Marty. Thank you, Marty, for your question. This is for both of you, and Mary Fran will let you answer this one first. Do you have favorite books you read for inspiration?
I have a favorite author. I adore Anne Lamott. She is she writes from the heart, but she's so funny and she's so witty and she's so authentic. And so many of her lines are things that I live by. And one of the things that she says, because when Kristin and I talk about, how to show your brilliance and all that, one of the ways to not show your brilliance is to get overly involved in other people's stuff because it distracts you from your own stuff. But one of the things that Anne Lamott says is stop getting your messy help all over everybody. And she has a really funny, lovely way to get to the heart of sort of spiritual things, but in a very practical way. She struggled with alcoholism for many years. So I kind of have a relationship through my son's situation to her situation in that way. Anything by Anne Lamott. She's amazing.
Did you pick up her new book yet?
Oh my gosh, no.
I think we have signed copies.
Oh gosh, I have to get one of those.
Maybe at Lahaska. Maybe both. I'll check for you.
Oh, please do. I would love that. I just adore her. She's the best.
And how about you, Kristin?
Right now
She's been reading mortgage papers.
Yeah, that's true. But I have been on, I guess it's like a 6-month thing now on resetting I've been doing a lot of work on mindset because there's just been a lot of stuff that has happened. And I realized that my stuff is rooted in my mindset not shifting quick enough or into a different and staying me. That's been the hard thing. So I did go back to, I've been digging through Tony Robbins. I love reading his stuff. And incidentally, if you all go on our YouTube or on the podcast and look up the episode with David Feigenbaum, his book is Chasing My Cure. And I know him from the rare disease community. He actually cured his own rare disease, which sounds like that's going to be a tough book to read, but I guarantee you, and watch the episode, you'll get the highlights. He gives you 5 top tips on how he tapped into his resilience and kept smiling when he was on his deathbed 5 times. And the doctor, oh my God, Mary Fran's like, this guy is, and I'm like, he is like PhD at Penn, and now he was working on COVID. And then he sits there like, he's your friend next door. Like, he literally is like your next door neighbor. And he thinks that everything, he's just so grateful. And his thing is, he says, because I was always find the silver lining kind of person. And sometimes when these things are hitting so hard, I can't. And that's why I can't come out of the pit. And he said to me, Kristin, you have to create them sometimes. You have to create the silver lining if you can't find it. And that was such a life changer for me. So I go back to his book, like I'll pick it up in a chapter and read a part, like especially his part about find the funny in things. He's very big on sense of humor. But I'm into those kinds of things that are real stories of people that have been there. And another good one I have to tell you all is Eric Wyman, Touch the Top of the World. That was the first book I read in my journey of raising blind kids. And Eric is totally blind and has climbed all 7 summits. But Touch the Top of the World was right after he did, oh my God, what is the
Kilimanjaro?
Nah, he did that one too.
Everest,
yeah. Look, I have lip gloss on and it's approaching 8 o'clock. I don't do math and I can't remember anything. But anyway, when he came off Everest, he did his story. And I will tell you, the first half is very hard when he loses his vision, but you have to go through that to appreciate where he goes from there. And if you're struggling and just can't see something different, like I talked about with perception, read that book.
Wow.
It's a game changer.
And there's a question I like to ask our female authors, and since it is Women's History Month, I thought it might be appropriate. At what point in your life did you realize that you had a voice, or your voice mattered? And could be as a child, it could be as a writer, at any point.
Well, if you ask my siblings, they tell you I had a voice from day one. And my children and husband would happily second that.
Disappeared.
But, I think there's a very different idea between having something to say and feeling empowered to say it. So I think maybe when I was in high school, I've always written, always. But I think maybe when I was in high school, I started to look at that as a tool, at writing as a tool to really be able to, because I was good at it. And I could use it to express and possibly, I don't know if persuade is the right word, but at least put out ideas to the world that made sense to me and comment on things that concerned me and all of that. So I've always written, but I don't think it was probably until that point that I really realized there was a use for it and it could change things. That was important.
And, for me, well, I was sitting here thinking, my mom was just telling the story the other day that I have 4 brothers, and the mantra in my family is that Kristin is second in birth order, first in command. I never had a problem using them. It was very odd the way I grew up, being the only girl and from a Catholic family and all, but I was the one that had the big voice, and my family looked at me as I was going to be the successful one. So I was very much like that. And then my voice was taken away in a marriage I had no business being in, and in some other, I got into the vision research field, and in the scientific field, there's a lot of, I'm just going to say it, there's a lot of bully guys in the STEM field. There's a lot of magnificent ones, but I was one that let people that don't matter for too long, to the point where I actually had one of the biggest folks in the field said on a mega stage about me that cute little mom isn't going to make a dent in this field. And I let that crush me for a little while. But I will say, I found my voice again through the work for my kids, through advocating for them. And that's what helped me get it back. And he and I were 2 of 12 people in the world to be invited to testify at the FDA to get the first ever gene therapy approved. And I was like, and he's real tall, and I am a little mom next to him, right? And I was like, I went all Philly on him, Chrissy. I mean, I was like lower Bucks Philly on him. I'm like, how's that for the little mom, right? In the middle of the FDA. High five and all the researchers. You don't do that in the FDA, but when you're me, because we got it all,
can't help it. You can't.
It was unbelievable, right? And then I actually had in my divorce, it was taken away, like I was shrunk down again. Why do we do that? And an attorney said to me, Kristin, it's time for you to advocate for yourself the way you advocate for your kids. And that's when I started on my trajectory. And then I have Mary Fran text to me, put your big girl pants on and let's go. That's what she does when you always need a friend like that. I'm feeling a little shrunken and I don't have a voice today. She's like, stop it.
You got a job to do. It's time to do the job.
I'm like, oh, I'm in.
We've pulled each other back from the ledge on more than one occasion.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I'd like to thank, this was so much fun tonight. This was so
We had a great time. We always have a great time.
We should come with a warning label. You ain't ever experienced anything like this. No, this has been great. I'm so glad to talk with you and be able to talk about the book and our journey. It's awesome.
And here's the other thing.
Yeah.
This little piece of it, I hope people have seen it through us, but you don't have to go through resilience sad. You can there's joy to be found every step of the way. It might be dark humor, but it's there. And if that's all you get, you latch onto that until you get to the other side. So Kristin and I have kind of made that a mantra for us, that we always try to have fun and show people that, yes, there are challenges. Life is not simple. It's not easy. But there's joy to be had. So
yeah, there's still important. And we are putting, people can get in touch with us because we also realized in the recent months, not everybody and kind of most people don't have the resource in each other that we have to be able to every day say. So we are putting together small groups where you can get with us, that we can do this for you and with you and bring other people in that you can meet to cheer you on along the bumpy roads too.
Oh, wow. And how can people contact you through your website?
I'm called Mary Fran at home. No, I'm kidding. Preferably
but not before 8 o'clock in the morning.
You're not allowed to call her before 8.
Do not text me before 8 o'clock. She's up at like 5 o'clock. I'm like, there's nothing so important that I have to know it before 8 o'clock in the morning. Nothing. Unless we get there's nothing. But you can find us through our website. We have contact page there. We're all over the place. Join our Facebook community. You can send us a direct message. It's the Brilliantly Resilient Community on Facebook. We're everywhere. We're
and brilliantlyresilient.net. You can get everything at the website. And it's .net, not .com. That woman wouldn't give us .com.
Somebody wouldn't give it to us. That's why we trademarked the sucker.
There you go. Well,
Mary Fran's from South Philly. Mary Fran's from South Philly. You don't hold on to a website when you Mary Fran wants it.
Nope. Don't mess with me.
Oh my goodness.
So fun.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you would like to purchase the book from the Doylestown Bookshop or the Lahaska Bookshop, we have copies. Click the button on your screen that says buy the book or click the link in the chat box. If you're watching this afterwards on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to buy your book. Thank you again so much for joining us. This was so much fun. I hope that when things open up a bit more, we can do something at the store. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
All right. Well,
cool.
Thank you so much again. Have a great night. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Take care.